Peter, there's an interesting market developing in Africa on the bottom of the pyramid, where more and more people are getting involved in mobile. But obviously, with no or hardly any money, there are some difficulties in that market as well.
That's correct, Paul. In Africa, we're seeing that most markets on that continent are now well and truly in that phase of what's commonly referred to as the bottom of the pyramid market, or BOP market, BOP, bottom of the pyramid. That referring to the majority of the population in a country or a market that is relatively poor. And while markets like that horrify many investors or players in these markets, service providers, they are obviously saying, how can you operate in such a market? There's no money in it. Other players are very excited about these markets. They're saying, yes, sure, the spending power of consumers may be low, but the attractiveness in these markets is the sheer number of customers or potential customers. We're talking about worldwide, we're talking about 2.5 billion people that fall in this category. And a common definition is if a person lives on less than $2.50 a day, you're counted as a member of that bottom of the pyramid. So worldwide, 2.5 billion people, that's more than a third of the population of the planet falls in that category. In Africa alone, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people that live on less than $2.50 a day. How do you make a business case out of that with telecommunications? It's of course not easy. There are issues with it. Starting with infrastructure deployment. The problem is most of these people are not in the cities. Some of them are, but most of them are out in the rural areas where it's expensive to deploy infrastructure and make it operate profitably. And you need efficient and cost-effective distribution mechanisms to take your services to these customers. So there are issues, but we're finding some operators are very good at this, and they're making a very profitable business in markets like these, while others are not. And that's what we're looking at in our research too. We're looking at companies, how are they doing this? What are the tricks of the trade to make their business a profitable one?
Can you give a couple of examples of companies who are particularly doing it well or not well?
Yes, well, the consequence has been there's a lot of consolidation going on because of this. And a good example is the recent major acquisition when Bharti Airtel of India bought the African business of Zain from Kuwait's MTC. Zain had been running into, a lot of their country operations had been running into losses, and that is certainly part of the reason why they've sold off a lot of that business. They kept some markets to themselves that were operating at a profit. Most of them were sold. Bharti of India is, of course, comes from an environment of low ARPU, average revenue per user. They're very much used to operating in such an environment and operating profitably.
Thank you, Peter.